Hey mechanics, it's Red Knobster, and today I am here with episode 1 of Scrap Mechanic. Now this is a relatively new early access game that's available on Steam. If you haven't seen it yet, I will do a little bit of a tutorial in the beginning of this episode showing you the ins and outs of the game, but if you've already seen this, basically explanations of how the game works and things like that from other YouTubers, or just by playing it yourself, there will be a link, or at least a time burned in onto the screen of which you can skip to, where we actually start building something. So we're going to start off by going to a new game and then going to creative mode. Now they're going to be adding survival mode down the line, where there's like robots you have to fight off and you have to gather the resources to build the things you're making, but right now, similar to Minecraft, we have creative mode when it first starts, and what we want to do is name the world. Let's just name it Red World, why not? And then go ahead, hit create, and you can also choose to use like a flat world and things like that, but I like the terrain just because it's more fun to mess around with, especially once you build something, you can then test it on the terrain as well. So what we're going to be doing in this episode, after the tutorial anyways, is building a quadrupedic mech suit. So as you can see, the game is really beautiful, to be honest. I'm only on medium graphics right now, and it's very ambient. It's got some nice sounds to it as well, but over here we have our testing grounds. As you can see, we have a nice flat area. We're going to be building the mech right over there eventually, but first off, we're going to be going through a little tutorial as to how things work in this game. So first of all, we have a bunch of objects and some little wood pieces connecting them, and we also have a connecting tool, which is the item in the last slot of our inventory right here. As you can see, it's every mechanic's favorite tool. It connects interactive parts together, for example, a gas engine to a bearing or a thruster to a driver's seat. What we have here is basically a switch, which is represented by the purple, and then a bearing, which is represented by the blue, and then the controller, which is represented by purple. In this game, you can have loose bearings, and that's basically any block connected to a bearing, such as a block right here, and then any block connected to the block connected to the bearing also connect to the bearing. So as you can see, we have the little blue dot in there still, which means the bearing's connecting to these blocks. So if we go ahead and get a hammer, the loose bearing is now, being activated upon because we gave it momentum, things like that, and it will slowly come to a stop because that's how physics work. That's how physics work. But if we want it to be static and be able to be controllable and stuff, we have to hook it up to a controller, of course. But we can't do that here because this wood structure is not connected or parented to this wood structure. So basically, this controller doesn't activate that because it's not connected to this at all. So what we have to do is actually put a controller onto here. So let's go ahead and get a controller by opening up the inventory with the I key, and as you can see, this is all the resources we have. Basically, it's not a whole lot, but it opens up a window for a lot of possibilities even in this stage of the game. So as I go ahead and put a controller on the side of this block anywhere, of course I can't put it over here because that wouldn't be connected to the structure, but if I put it like right here, and then we use a connecting tool, as you can see, le bouche, it then connects to it. Now we also have this little arrow key, which then represents that the bearing has a possibility of going the positive direction or the negative direction. And this is basically some keyframe animation that then shows what angles we want it to turn at what time and what speed, which is pretty advanced and it looks complicated, but once we get into actually using it, it'll be a pretty piece of cake. So what we're going to do is first off connect a switch to this controller, and it doesn't have to be on the controller, but of course it can't be on the ground or on the other piece because it has to be on the structure itself. So if we go ahead and do that and then connect the controller with the switch, meaning once we hit the switch, it then activates the controller, and then the controller then activates this. But of course, right now, it's not going to do anything because the controller is not telling it to do anything. So let's say we want it to turn clockwise like this, which is basically following the blue arrow path, right? If we wanted to go counterclockwise, we would make it go to the red, which is the negative path. So let's go ahead and make it blue so it goes clockwise. As you can see, this is the starting position. So this is 0 degrees right now. It's pointing that direction, and that means it has a 0 degree turn. If we want it to start, say, at a 30-degree direction in the positive direction, it will start right there. Pretty simple stuff. But we're going to set that to 0 real quick, and then set this to 90. So now it's going to do a full quarter turn, as you can see, once we hit the switch. And then once we hit the switch again, it will then go back. Now an important thing to note is that this is the fastest speed. If we want it to slow down or go really slow, we can do that just as well. And once we hit the button, it instantly turns back. It doesn't have to finish the cycle. It's pretty neat. So another thing to keep note of is the fact that the bearings can also be vertical as well. As you can see, this one right here is horizontal, and it moves the object on a horizontal plane. And you can actually stretch this for a very, very long way. I don't think there's a real limit to it. As you can see, if we come over here, it still moves the entire thing at the same speed. There's no real difference in it. If you use heavy blocks, it still moves at the same speed. Heavy is basically just determining how much it takes for something to move it while it's not being stuck to the ground or something like that, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, but once we get into making a walking mech it's going to make a little bit more sense. But of course, we can also make it vertical like this. So once we put some blocks here, it will then fall because gravity then acts upon it. Actually, it won't because it's connected to the controller already. But if we go ahead and take the controller and connect it to there, it then sets it up, and then the exact same thing takes place, except for when we do, say, 90 degrees here, it will then go 90 degrees on the, vertical axis when we hit the switch, like so. Beautiful. So something that is rather irrelevant to this video, but very important for the future episodes I plan on releasing is, of course, the driver's seat and the engine that, helps it run. So, of course, as we have here a bearing that is connected to a controller, we can then detach that because we cannot have multiple things connecting to one bearing. We can then detach, or, attach the driver's seat to the bearing. That means once we get in the driver's seat and actually turn the wheel, it activates the bearing in, the specific direction that I turn the wheel. So to make a fake little car, of course, you can't just put tires on the side of it and make it roll because that would just be static. So we have to put it on a bearing and then put the wheel on the bearing as well. As you can see, once we connect the engine to that, it will start turning because the engine is on. But if we turn it off, the engine will, of course, turn off. But if we go ahead and, turn it on and then connect the engine to the seat, it will turn off until we get into the car. As of course it's not turning, but once we hold down W, it'll start turning. If we hold down D, it'll start going backwards because that's how the game works. Alright, so on to building the mechanical mech suit Quadruped. Now what we're going to be doing is designing it off of like a tortoise, which may or may not be an excuse for how slow it is, and if it tips over, I don't have to flip it back over because that's how turtles work. Ha! Loophole. Nonetheless, what we're going to be doing is using these giant green boxes as feet, because as you can see by the palette of this game, not a whole lot of color variation. But these boxes fit pretty well, and considering, it's a video game, it'll work nicely. But nonetheless, we don't want to place the things on the ground and then build the turtle from this box, because that means that the turtle is then connected to the ground, which is not good. What we want to do is start on a lift, which is very important in this game. I forgot to mention that as well. Basically, using the arrow keys, once placed onto it, we can then lift the objects up and down. But as you can see, once we drop it, it falls. But as seen by here, it's not connected to the ground at all, which means that's how you build things like cars and things that aren't static to the ground, things like that aren't buildings or doors and things like that. But first of all, place a lift, and then before we place like the feet and stuff like that, I want to place the frame. This will basically be where the seat is that you control the entire vehicle from, and vehicle as in mech suit. Let's find a good frame real quick. That looks like a good, yeah, this is a good square piece. So hitting Q actually rotates the object, and as you can see, I'm going to place it like so, and looking at it now, yeah, it's pretty good. You won't be seeing any of the metal, I don't believe. It's all going to be hidden by the shell of the tortoise that we're going to be sitting inside, basically like a dome for the seat, and then the head will be guarding the front, I believe. So, we want to lift it up with the up arrow key, of course, and then before we raise it too high, I want to be able to reach it right here. So first of all, we're going to build some legs. Now, I don't want to build just, legs coming down like so, because that's not going to be very easy to do. Basically, we want to build legs that can move forwards and backwards because that's how legs work, right? I like using pipes just because they represent the curves of a surface. So as you can see, it points down, but if you Q, it kind of comes out a little bit. So that way, when the feet are moving back and forth, and the ankles and stuff, or not the ankles, the ligaments connecting the feet to the body, I suppose, considering it doesn't have knees, it won't hit this piece because the pipe sticks out a little bit and it's rounded, so it's pretty nice as well. So we're going to head and do that on all four sides, and actually, before we add the second piece, we need to add a bearing. So bearing on the side of that foot, and then a pipe coming down like so, and this actually doesn't move right now if we hit it. As you can see, the gravity isn't pulling it down like it should be, and the reason being is because it's on a lift. If we drop the lift, then it will have loose bearings. Basically, loose bearings don't exist while on the lift. That makes it easier to build stuff. It's very nice, but nonetheless, what we're going to be doing is building some suspension coming from these legs, which is very important. Reason being is because the thing needs to walk, and if the thing doesn't have, like, momentum from the suspension, it won't be able to walk. That's basically the mechanic it works off of. As you can see, this bearing right here will allow the leg to go left and right, and the leg will then come down here a little bit. And instead of just putting the green blocks as the foot right there, we're actually going to be putting a block in between, like so, and then a bearing on the bottom of that. That way, we can actually, if need be, turn this foot later on without having to redo all the feet. As you can see, it can turn left and right just the foot, which means we can basically turn the entire lower body left and right. That might be useful, probably won't be, but we're going to do it just in case because it's very easy to do. So nonetheless, what we're going to do is come over here and put bearings on the rest of these, and of course pipes as well. And then of course suspensions for the rest of these, and I'm using sports suspension because it will have a lower center of gravity. If the higher suspensions are there, then it will start to sway back and forth even more, and I don't want it to sway too much because it may tip forward and backwards, you know, and fall over, so I don't want that. What we're going to be doing is then of course putting the blocks on the bottom of these. And then we are going to lift it up a little bit more so we can actually get under here a little bit. Boosh. And I want to make sure all the blocks are facing the same way. As you can see, bananas are facing forwards right now, and that may or may not be good. I'm actually going to leave it like that on the right side and redo it on this side. That way, if we look at it from the side, it doesn't have bananas on it. And that's the side we'll see a majority of the foot from, because when we finish these feet right here, we're going to be using these little things like so, as like claws, basically. And that will allow us to have traction when we walk. But actually, they want to be the other way. This is actually preferred because this will allow it to basically lean back and forth, each foot independently, meaning it can roll, and, you know, trying to walk on a rectangular surface, basically there's a tipping point right there. If you go past that point, the front foot will basically just flatten out and fall over. But if this little thing allows it to roll, it gives it some leeway and allows it to, you know, scale terrain a lot better. It's actually pretty important. So doing this for the front and back feet on the front and back of each foot is pretty important as well. Ta-da! So now, if we go ahead and get rid of this, it has feet, and it can stand on its own, of course. These boxes, I think, weigh a lot? Am I wrong? No, they're actually lightweight, but they're rather large, which makes it a pretty cool object, because usually bigger objects weigh a lot more, but these don't, because they're cardboard boxes. So now, this thing is actually capable of walking. We don't need to add the rest of the turtle, but I'm going to be doing that anyways. Let's go ahead and actually hook it up so it can walk, of course. First of all, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to use a lift, actually, to get on top of it, using it as like a little basic elevator. That way we can get up here, and then we want to hook up a seat. Now, we don't need a driver's seat, actually, because the driver's seat incorporates that we need to steer, and we're not going to be using the steering wheel to steer this thing. Is that centered? It is not. That would have sucked. No! I fell! Wait. You can just get up by jumping on the boxes. Fantastic. Perfect. So now we're going to be sitting inside of the shell like so.
One man to rule the world. Eating an invisible donut, riding an invisible turtle.
Now the seat up there is actually very important because that will let us basically remotely activate these legs and the turning and, you know, contracting of them and such from these switches that will then connect to the seat. So as you can see, we have a lot of purple dots, and those will all connect in unison just to make it simple to connect to the seat. And I don't remember if there's a limit to how many things you can connect, but as you can see, if we jump on in with the 1 key, it goes off 3, 4, or 5. You can do all of them at the same time if you want. I don't know, just spam it. Sure. Well, let's go ahead and turn all those off because that will mess up everything. And then next, what we want to do is hook up some controllers to these switches. And then just connect all of these in unison. So as you can see, we have the 6 switches connected to the seat, and then the 6 switches then connected to separate controllers. And actually, now that I think of it, I don't think we need 6, because 1 controller can activate the front feet, and 1 controller can activate the back feet. But there will be a turning mechanism as well that will allow us to turn, which will need a couple. So I'm just going to leave them for now and work around it as needed. So as we have here, we're going to put it on the lift it up a little bit, and then give it some rotation. So first of all, we need to connect these bearings to the controllers. So number 1, we'll connect the front 2 feet, like so. So as you can see, one's going in the positive direction and one is going in the negative direction. So let's just go ahead and make those both positive just so it makes it easier on us. As you can see, this blue circle is going clockwise and this blue arrow is also going clockwise. So now these are both in unison. So 1 and 2 are basically connected on the same controller, and we basically want the feet to go positive? No, we want it to go negative. So it goes this way, which basically turns this foot and makes it go outwards. And doing that will basically allow us to walk. So we're gonna go negative 45? Let's do a negative 45, we'll see how that works. So we hooked up the first legs to the first controller. Now we need to hook up the back legs to the second controller, which is going to be kind of hard to reach. It's going to be kind of hidden. There we go. As you can see, it says no bearings connected because we need to then connect with that purple dot to the back feet. Now, like with the first ones, they're going clockwise, blue, we're going to do the same with these ones. This one is going clockwise. So right click on it to change the direction, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. That allows us to change the angle of it. We're going, basically making the feet go forward 45 degrees. Now we want the back feet to only go 30 degrees, which means the forward feet will go further, which will allow us to basically drag the turtle along because the front feet go further than the back feet, and it works out nicely. I'll show you when we get to it. But the back feet need to go blue because they're going this way and these feet are going that way. It's basically like a galloping motion. It's not how actual turtles walk, but it's about as close as you're going to get without making it way overcomplicated. So we need to go blue 30 degrees, like so. And I believe we can actually test this thing out, maybe. Let's go ahead and drop it. Beautiful. Get into it. Interesting. Oh! Okay, an important thing to do is actually put this back on a lift real quick and connect the things down here to something. So let's go ahead and get the third controller and just connect it to this. And if we ever need the third controller or these feet to turn, because they're loose bearings right now and the feet are basically turning from under it. So now, if we try to drive it, as you can see, we want to hit 2 first and then 1. That allows us to move forward. But as you can see, it's not working too well because the front back toes get caught on the ground. And the reason they do that is because the back is not leaning back enough. Meaning we have to add more weight to the back, which will allow the front to lean upwards more so the feet don't get caught prematurely. So to build a shell, what we have to do is basically build a 3-dimensional circle. And I learned a lot of things from Minecraft, and one of them was how to do that. So first of all, what we're going to do is use the rule of 3, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3. That basically means 3, like so, if I can get rid of that block, and then 2, and then 2, and then 1, and then 2, and then 2, and then 3. Like so. As you can see, that is one corner of the circle, but that's a little big nonetheless, so maybe we'll do like 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, and basically just lower the number to make the shell a little bit smaller. Alright, so the way this is going to work is we're going to connect it from the back. As you can see, we want to do something like this, so the back, the metal at least, is kind of hidden. And we're going to do that on all 3 sides, on the back sides, and it's going to be 4 long to start with. I believe that's a good size. And then we're going to jump up here and build them up 4 like this. I keep dragging on accident. I forget you can drag. Boosh. If you just hold down and drag, it drags. So beautiful. Alright, and then what you want to do, get rid of that one, is connect these 2 like so. So it's just going to be a small little gap like so, and then build one right here maybe. And then what we're going to do is build 2 up like so in the centers. Beautiful. Actually build 3 up like so in the centers. 1 on the sides around it, like so. And then we want to start building in. So this is the beginning of our shell like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it, variable size as long as it, is going to wrap around the character enough to, actually be a shell. That's what we're going to do. Ours is going to be a little tall, it looks like, but we're going to keep going with it nonetheless. And then to basically make it taller without it being tall out here, we're just going to come from the inside, like so, and then connect this piece to all the rest of the pieces. No! So we're getting down to the wire here. Of course, as you can see, he's kind of getting convoluted. I don't want him to be like too stuck into this stuff. I want him to actually wrap around him instead of like going into his head, which we could drive still, but he might get stuck trying to get out and things like that. And I don't know how survival mode's going to work with suffocation and things like that, if it's going to even exist. But what we're going to do is try to wrap it around him a little better. So we're going to come out here, make all these this tall, and then see what this looks like real quick. Is that good? That's a good height right there. Okay, so let's come out over here on this side too, because we haven't yet. Is that symmetrical? No. Yes? No. This... what? Wait a second. It's all broken! Can we still get out? Beautiful, like flings us out, that's even better. So as you can see, it's starting to look pretty good. We need to do something back here, I think. Maybe just come out like one more. Yeah, that was actually pretty nice. So as to be expected, once we get into the seat and actually start trying to walk forward, hitting the keys 2, 1, and then 1 and 2 at the same time, we will actually start walking forward. Reason being is because the front feet, basically the back nails of the front feet, are no longer being caught in the ground, as you can see, because the back legs, using their suspension, will basically bend enough, allowing the front toes to get out of the way. Another cool thing to note, basically, is that you can actually walk backwards by doing the reverse. So doing 1, 2, and then 2, 1 at the same time will let us walk backwards. So now comes for the time to actually turn the thing. So as you can see, the entire structure has turned, and it's done that using the turning mechanism right here. But as you can see, we only have one on one foot. We're going to be putting one on the other, so I'll show you how to do that, of course. But jumping in, I've connected it to the 3 key. So what you want to do is basically touch the 3 key, and that little mechanism will basically stunt it up right there. And then once you start spamming the 3 key, you'll start turning in that direction. Beautiful. Now, you can actually do that in a full circle if you want, if you just keep spamming it, but instead of doing, you know, a full circle to turn right 45 degrees, you can just add one on the right foot as well. So what we want to do is put a bearing right here, and then put some blocks coming out like so, so it reaches the front of the foot, come down a little bit so we can actually see, put another bearing right there, and then come out and basically make a little rectangle like so, and then once we come over here, we can put a little paper towel roll going like so, and I use paper towel because it's silent, so the amount of bouncing you're doing isn't, you know, as noisy. It's not super silent, but it's better than nothing. Plus, it's rounded as well, which makes it so it actually rolls rather than just sits on the flat surface of a rectangle. Same reason we're using these instead of just the feet like this. I thought it was pretty neat. Nonetheless, we're going to now connect it. So I have the 3 hooked up to this one, of course, like I said, but we're going to hook up this one independently. So what you want to do is find the first one, which is the one connected to the actual foot. Connect it to the 4, and then as well as the next one, go to the 4, and make sure it's going clockwise with that one, and then counterclockwise with this one, just to make it easy. So now we want to go 90 like so, and then negative 150 with this one. So now once we jump in, we should be able to, once we get rid of lift the force, come on, turn this way. Now, an important thing to note is that when I'm turning left, the one I did previously, is that it actually does turn, but if I use the one on the right, it doesn't work at all. Reason being is because I forgot to mention that with number 3, you put the 150 on the second frame, meaning when it starts to lift up with the second part, which is, you know, the part that hits the ground. Here, I'll jump in and show you real quick. 3. That part right there is the only part moving for an entire frame, because it's on a separate frame as this one, separate keyframe. But if we go to 4, and then hit 4, as you can see, it all moves at the same time, but this one moves one and then moves the other. So that's a very important thing to take note of. So what to do to fix that is basically just, you know, set this back to 0, by click and dragging, and then go into 150, like so. So now once we get back in, we should be able to turn in this direction as well. Beautiful. So it's starting to look pretty intimidating, if I do say so myself, but nonetheless, we are not done yet. We still need to add the head if you really want to actually build a turtle rather than just a quadruped. So you want to do a little setup like this, where I have 2 bearings like this, and then the box will go on the top one like so. We actually want the yellow line to be vertical, so we're going to hit Q a few times, and as you can see, that yellow line now goes vertical, so it's hidden a little bit better. And then this bearing can now be deleted. That bearing basically forces that box to be on the top bearing, because, of course, if this bearing wasn't here, something you may not have known is that it will try to stick it on the middle of the box, which is not what we want, because it will then get stuck right there trying to turn on the 90-degree angle it's going to be turning. So we put the, you know, the bearing there, block there, get rid of the bearing, and then of course just get rid of the block right there. And then now we have the availability of turning on this 90-degree angle. So then next, of course, we just want to build the rest of the head. So what we're going to be doing is just pillaring up a little bit so we can actually reach the rest of the head. And then we want to turn so the boxes basically go sideways like that, and then put, you know, some fancy little eyes maybe as like sensors as the whoop, fell on the ground. Whoosh. I think sensors make a pretty good eye for the turtle, if I do say so myself. But it looks like that, and odds are it's probably not going to dry very well. I cut a little hole right here, and actually I need to fix something right here. I think there's a piece of wood missing. Whoosh. Let's just do this real quick. Is that good? What about this side? Is this side good? That side's good. Okay. So I've cut a little hole right here, and as you can see, it's probably not going to walk, actually, because it's a little front heavy. So if we try to do this, yeah, he's trying to do like a handstand. I mean, he's walking backwards, but if we hit the walk backwards buttons, he still walks backwards. So we basically have successfully created a turtle that walks backwards, and that's not good. So what we need to do is make it a little bit more back heavy to even it out. What I'm going to try to do is add a tail. Now, the first thing I have in mind is, adding another box, but I don't want the tail to be as big as his head. So what the idea I have is putting a potted vine plant. And I don't know if that's going to be a whole lot of weight, is it? It's a medium weight, so it's better than nothing. But I'm not just going to stick it on the back, because, it sticks out pretty far, and it's, like, brown and stuff. So what I'm going to do is actually cut a little hole like this, coming out the butt, and maybe that'll look better? A little better. Let's test it out now. Let's see if it walks good. It's getting real close. It's like a half a centimeter from not catching, and I want it to be a lot better than that. Let's just place some blocks all willy-nilly. If I can get around this seat, that'd be nice. Whew. And then maybe add like a giant metal piece down here, or two. As you can see, that changes a lot. So let's try with just one first and see what happens. It's good. It's getting there. He's evening out so where he doesn't get stuck, but he's slipping because the back feet aren't pushing properly. So let's actually fix his feet real quick before we try to fix this. Let's go with one more just to see what happens. If it makes it worse or not. Ah, there we go. Partially. Needs more weight. It's beautiful. So as you can see, I actually changed the angle of the front of the legs so they stretch out a little bit more. That way they get some more distance and are able to drag it a little bit more before slipping. Oh, hit both wrong buttons. Alright guys, so let's take it for one test run and see how it goes. I think it's pretty much finished. As you can see, the eye even lights up because he's happy to see us. But nonetheless, we jump on the light and then jump up here. Light, it's a sensor by the way. And then we hit 5 to then lift his head up. And as you can see, we are in our mech suit turtle. So, or tortoise I guess. And we just walk forward by hitting 2, 1. 1, 2. 2, 1. 1, 2. 2, 1. 1, 2. It's beautiful. And of course we can go in reverse as well by doing the reverse thing. We actually go in reverse a little bit faster, I believe, because all the front heavy weight. But we can also turn. We have a little turning mech. As you can see, if I look straight down, you can see these turtle. Beautiful. Have a little tail poking out. He actually turns rather quickly, to be honest. It actually works pretty well. So we then exit our mech. Boosh. And beautiful. Perfect. I think it's a good first episode, to be honest. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this yet, ever created, so pretty excited about it. He's excited about it too. But yeah, if you guys enjoy this episode, and of course if you guys enjoy this series, leave a like and of course subscribe if you're new here. I plan on doing some like multiplayer stuff with people and buddies and stuff like that, or rather YouTubers maybe in the future. Maybe we could do some like battles or something like that, mech battles, that'd be pretty cool. But I think it turned out pretty well, so if you enjoyed it, hope you enjoyed it. I don't know. I'll see you later. Something. I don't know. I've been doing this for 2 years. I still don't know how to say goodbye to you guys. You're beautiful, though. That's true.